for being here with us. We're excited about you being a part of our family and again letting us into your home as we let you into ours. This is a very special time because I've got my family with me. Of course, Pastor Melvin. I've got my oldest daughter, Kiana. Her husband, Terrence, will be here soon. I got my youngest son, Kyle, over there with me, and my youngest daughter, Kayla. And, you know, one of the things that's very important during this time is family. That's the first thing that God put in place before he put anything else. He put the family in place. And with that being said, you know, this has been a time where it's been so much of us being around each other. Now, all of my kids are grown, all of them. And so Kyle's at Stevens Point, Kayla's at Columbia in Chicago, Kiana's living in Milwaukee. She's in Milwaukee here, well, in the city here, but she's a mother, a wife, all those things. And so this is one of the first times in a long time where we've spent a bunch of time together. And this has been a plus and a minus. Because one of the things we had to do was, with everybody having their own lives, we had to learn how to live with one another again. And that has been a serious transition for us because, you know, just being transparent, a lot of times we'll come in home and Melva's doing whatever she's doing, I'm doing whatever I'm doing, Kayla's doing whatever she's doing, Kyle doing whatever he's doing, and we're not spending much time together as a family. And Kiana's in her home making whatever she needs to get done. And so now we're stuck to a certain extent in the house with one another, and we're having to learn how to be a family all over again versus a bunch of individuals living in a house.
Right.
And so, Melba, what has been one of the biggest transitions for you during this time?
Well, and I think that's a lot of things that you said triggered some conversation in my mind. But one of the biggest things is realizing how everybody had become so disjointed prior to the order for all of us to be in the house for 30 days. You know, we can find ourselves in these silos where, like Skip said, I'm doing my thing, he's doing his thing, and the kids are doing their thing. And unless you're intentional about bringing your family back together, you'll be in the same space, but you'll be very disjointed. And I think that the powerful thing, you know, when you think about the fact that the first institution that God ever made was the family. Family came before business. Family came before church. Family came before everything. And when we get away, you think about the law of first mention that we always talk about.
Right.
The law of first mention says that the first time God says something in the Word of God, that is His original intent for that thing. And so we know that the first thing God created was the family. And you know, we didn't get to choose who our family would be, and that means that our family was created on a higher order. But somehow, some way, life gets in the middle and begins to wedge these distances with us, and we have to fight to keep our family together. And you know, the kids will remember this, but when my grandmother, we called her Mama, when Mama was living, one of the things that Mama would do is she would cook food, and she would call one of us and say, I made something to eat. And what that meant was, I miss the family. I know you're going to be the one to make the phone call to tell everybody, Mama got some dressing. And so we would make the phone calls to one another and say, hey, Mama made something to eat. And we would all end up at Mama's house because Mama wanted all of us to come together. And that's what these times are about. It shouldn't find us fighting. It shouldn't find us at each other's throats. But it should find us looking for more ways to come together. And so that's kind of my intro to all of this. One of y'all want to say something?
What was the question?
Well, let me ask you this question, Kayla. Now, you've been in Chicago, you know, you've been doing your thing, living your life. How has the transition been being back home and trying to stay or reconnect with us?
It's been pretty difficult just because I'm so used to, one, waking up to music, going to bed to music. Throughout my day, it's nothing but music. Even when I would go home with my roommates, like somebody would be playing music and it was never quiet. But to come home to a house that's always quiet.
Silence.
No, like really, it's kind of eerie to me because I was always in my element, and I kind of sometimes feel out of place. In trying to, I feel like I'm in a sense trying to find myself again because I'm like, dang, like ain't no music in the house, like, and I can't blast it because then mom gonna be turn it off, or you gonna be you know what I mean? So there's that, and also I'm used to writing my name on the food that I buy. So in this house, it's different because my dad's like, I pay for everything, so you don't have anything in this house. What's mine is yours, and what's yours is mine.
Mhm.
Yeah. So.
How about you, Kyle? How has the transition been for you?
For me, the transition has been, it's been fairly easy. Like, it's nice coming from, so my house back in Stevens Point, we call it Poverty House. And like, when you're there,
You understand why?
if you were to see it, you understand why it's called Poverty House. But like, whenever I'm there, like, we always have like music going. We always, similar to her situation, like we always have music going. We always have people coming in and out of the house. Like, we're used to just in there chilling. But like, to have it to where now that I'm home and like I can be in my room and like I won't hear nothing for hours.
Yeah.
Like, rather than it being out of my element, now it's like peace. And like it's kind of nice. But I think for me, like, the hardest part about being back home is having to deal with classes and like not having to transition all of my like video courses from in-person stuff and like learning things about film and everything, taking all that and now trying to figure out how to do it in the house.
Yeah.
Like, I had a whole project I was doing with for one of my finals for one of my video production courses, and I have to redo the entire concept of it now because I'm stuck in the house.
Yeah.
How about you, Kiana? How's your transition been?
Well, me personally, I'm a stay-at-home mother, and I have 2 toddlers. So, and I'm an introvert, so I'm okay. So I'm okay. It's been nice because you're forced to do things intentionally versus just haphazardly. For example, my husband travels all the time, and this is...
What does your husband do?
He's a coach for UW Milwaukee men's basketball, assistant coach. And he absolutely loves his job. He's been doing it since, when we were dating. And so for him, this is a little different because, like I said, he's always on the go. But this is the first time that he and I have spent this amount of concentrated time together since being married. And for me, it's been great because I enjoy being around him. And it's funny because Pastor Melva called me a few days ago.
Don't call me Pastor Melva.
Sorry, Mom. So my mother called me a few days ago and told me that the governor had issued that individuals need to stay in their home for another 30 days. And right away, and I felt like you right away, I was just like, well, it's a good thing I like Terrence. Because,
Right.
I like my husband. I love him, no doubt. But this is where like comes into play. It's kind of like, I really do like you, and I enjoy being around him. I enjoy his company. He's funny to me, and so I'm seeing a little bit more that's funny, and things that I thought were funny really aren't funny. I just, but so overall, I'm enjoying it. I'm training. I'm in the process of training a toddler potty training. So my hope, prayer, and belief is that by the end of the whole quarantine, he'll be potty trained, and and it's wonderful to see my boys being able to spend more concentrated time with their dad because he's always on the go. He works late. Plus, we live far from UW Milwaukee, so it's been nice. It's been very nice. So
how do you, when you think about, you said that you like your husband. It's a good thing that you like him. But what happens, when we're all coming together and all of us have our individual personalities and we have our, like my house is really important to me. And the condition of my house is really important to me. Like, I want you to be able to eat off the floors in my house. That's how clean I want my house to be. Well, I realize that not everybody is that way. And so what happens when you find yourself in this space where, you have your differing personalities, you have your differing ways of keeping the house, because like Pastor Skip said, we're all adults now. And what I value, you may not value, and so we're having to work through those kinds of things. It's like, okay, I want the dishes washed, and I want the dishes washed as soon as you through eating. I don't want to walk by and see dishes. So there's so many different adjustments that we're all having to make, And Kyle and Kayla, they're now adults. Kyle is 22, going to be 23. Kayla's going to be 20 next week, or week after next. And, so they're adults, but they're back in their parents' home. And we have our standards. We have our, they went away and changed. We didn't change. We're still the same people. And so all of us learning to walk with one another in this space that we're in now, where we're being made to deal with one another. It's going to require a great deal of patience. It's going to require a lot of conversation. Because you can't get irritated quickly at one another. You have to take a deep breath and say, okay, let me deal with this. Because when she left, I could tell her what to do. Now that she's back, she's had her own apartment in Chicago. She's been kind of buying her own groceries, paying her own bills, and now she's back in Mom's house. Where is the line and all of that drawn? So I would love for you all to talk about that transition, if you. There's no question, but it's just something to say. Do you want to say anything about it? You don't have to.
I don't think there's really anything to say.
I'll comment from when I came back.
Oh, all right, do your thing.
So it is definitely an adjustment because, and I think for you all, because you haven't necessarily been home long enough to really feel it, but you'll feel it. Trust and believe that. But like you said, it's the fact that when I left, I changed because I was able to develop my own system of cleanliness, and I had my own pattern. I had developed my own lifestyle, and so for me to be back in my parents' house, which I left from and changed from that, it was kind of an adjustment, but there was still a level of respect because it's like, okay, I know what I'm getting myself into. I know what I'm going back to. I know that they're going to expect this of me. I know that they're going to, so it was more or less me being mature enough to say, okay, this is my parents' house. Okay, I leave my dishes in the sink, maybe an hour or two after I eat. Maybe not right away like Mom does, but now I'm back in Mom's house, so I have to, pick it back up. You know what I mean? So I have to adjust, and the conversation is very important because, I just imagine being stuck in a bubble with someone for an amount of time. That's how you feel, but, you have your own pockets and whatnot, but, you're forced to have a conversation, to express things that you probably normally wouldn't do because you're in Chicago or you're in Stevens Point and, well, I really don't want to talk about this right now. Mom, I have to hurry up and go or whatnot. But now it's like, okay, now you're here. Yeah. What are you going to do about it? So, in the end, it helps you to mature. It helps you to grow. So,
that's good.
Yeah, it's good to have your own pockets. Your ability to go away and do you in your space, but what happens sometimes is you'll get into your space and you'll forget the unit and you'll stay an individual. And recently I had to have a family meeting with them and say, hey, listen, I understand all of you have your own things. We're all doing our own things. We have our own personalities. I get that. But don't ever forget we're a family. And we have to be intentional about spending time with one another, talking to one another. Because, for the first 2-3 days they came home, everybody was just scattered. We were like a wide open hand. And I'm like, okay, now it's time to stop being that. We got to be a fist. We got to be a fist at least a moment a day where we come together, we talk, we check on one another. Because we don't know, you could be in your room with all of us and you could be going through something and we'd never know. You could be going down the road of depression and we don't know because you're in your own room and you're doing your own thing. But if I get to see your face, if I get to see your mannerisms, your demeanor, I can evaluate you better and say, okay, Let's go for a walk and talk.
Right.
Let's get out of this house. You're getting cabin fever. I can see where you are. You know, I remember when Adam had fell. When Adam had fell in the book of Genesis, in Genesis chapter 3, and God asked him, Adam, where are you? He wasn't asking him where he was physically, because he knew physically where he was.
Right.
But he was asking the question, where are you mentally? Where are you spiritually? Where are you emotionally? Because I need to know where you are, because if I know where you are, I can help you get to your next place. And how I know where you are is you got to identify that.
It's really powerful. Yeah.
You got to identify, where are you? Can you tell me where you are? Because I can help you if I know where you are.
Okay.
If you call me and say, when we've had conversations, Kayla, you've called me and said, Dad, you know, I'm feeling like I don't want to do this no more.
Yeah, I want to drop out. That's like, yeah.
Yeah, and what did I say to you? I said, that's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And I talked you to a place where you were like, yeah, I'm going to go through this. We're going to get this done now. Mm-hmm. But I can't do that if I don't know where you are.
Yeah.
And so it's so key and it's so important that as a family, first of all, you let each other know where you are. Where are you? Melvin, where are you? You know, my wife right now is in the midst of helping people write books. She's an amazing writer. And so she gets lost in those books. And so there's sometimes I'll just come up to her, I have to look at her and sort of figure out, where are you? Or I'll look at Kyle. You know, he could be in the room gaming. And I gotta look at him and say, where are you? I'll just go in there, sit and watch him play video games, just so I can be in his presence, figure out where he is, see what's going on with him, because that's so important. As a husband, my job is to band around my house. I have to band around this house, and I can't band around something I don't know where it is. Mm-hmm. You know, and so it's real key that we just look each other eye to eye.
Right.
Have a conversation. And now that we're adults, have adult conversations about things.
Right.
You know, what's up with your boyfriend? What's up with your girlfriend? You know, have real conversations with y'all so we know where you are, and reiterate what our expectations are.
Right.
They haven't changed just because you're an adult. They're the same. It's just how do we go about accomplishing.
Right. Well, I think one of the key things about our families coming together is us realizing where each individual is at each stage of their life. You know, Kyle and Kayla are not children, so I can't deal with them. Kiana's not a child anymore. I can't deal with them like they're children. And so I have to learn how to address them, respect them where they are without lowering my own values. I have my set values. There are things that I believe in. There are things that I'm passionate about. Those things I've invested in my kids. But now as they're older, they're making their own decisions. Now as their mom, I have to respect the decisions that they make. And although I don't like every decision that they make, I have to respect the decisions that they make. And then, you know, if they bump their head in the midst of them making the decisions, my commitment is to be their mother and to be there with them to walk them through the head bumping, if you will. Right. And so it's just really important that we respect one another. And for the kids, when you were talking, I was thinking about the fact that sometimes we don't realize, because I didn't give myself to Kyle and Kayla, Kiana and Quentin. They didn't give me to them. God did that. I said it earlier. So this family was created on a divine order. And that means that there's something that's innate in the people that He's put together to help build and cultivate and make us who God has called us to be. Mm-hmm. So locked in my bowels is treasures, wisdom, knowledge that my kids need, whether they tap into it or not, whether they access it or not. There is wisdom and treasures inside of me that my kids need.
Exactly.
And so that's why it's so important, as we're thinking about the family, to ensure that during these times that we're not just coming together sitting around the TV. And the TV is fine. I'm not knocking that. But you'll never be able to tap treasures in your kids, or in each other, in your spouse, if you're coming together just watching TV. I'll say this and then I'll let somebody else say something, but we've been so busy doing so many things, and one of the things that my girls have been on me, Kiana and Kayla have been on me down through the years, is the fact that I didn't teach them how to jump rope. Well, I learned how to jump rope when I was 6 years old. Double Dutch.
Yeah, exactly.
I didn't teach them how to jump rope, and I didn't teach them how to French braid. Well, I had to learn at the age of 6 on the street, so then nobody
I wasn't allowed out there.
Then nobody stopped the world to teach me how to jump rope or how to French braid. And so this was something that Kayla had been, please teach me how to braid. And so 2 days ago, we took some time, we came away from the television, and I taught her how to French braid. And she French braided Destiny's hair and did a beautiful job. Good job. That's the beauty, something that's simple. That's the power of time together, making each other a priority as a family.
But it happened when you slowed down.
When we slowed down. We were forced to slow down.
And I think that's the God thing in all of this. It's forcing us to slow our lives down and begin to act like family again and do things that family do, because we're so busy doing our own lives that we stop becoming a part of each other's lives. Mm-hmm. And that to me, some people are looking at this as the devil. You can't do this, you can't do that. But what you can do is get your core right. Yeah. What you can do is get the most important thing in your life right. And that's been the missing element in the church, in the inner cities, in the suburbs. It's just been the missing element because we've been too busy trying to grind and hustle than to build relationship and family. And some of us are going to look back and say, I had an amazing hustle, but I lost my family. Yeah. And the Bible talks about what good is it to gain the whole world, right, and lose your soul. But for me, what good is it to gain millions and billions of dollars or whatever, fame and notoriety, and lose your family? Yeah. And so our job, first of all, as parents, is to pass on whatever we have to y'all. But your job as our children is to come and get it. We can cook all day, but unless you come to the table and eat, that's not our fault. Mm-hmm. That's not our fault. But you have to be able to look at us and say, I want what you have. I need what you have. I
can pass it down.
Yeah, I think that.
I can pass these behaviors down. Yeah. I don't want. When my grandmother passed in 2015, the biggest fear, if you will, that I carried was now the matriarch of our family is in heaven. What is going to happen to our family? Yeah. She was the glue that kept us together. And so we started, my conversation, we were looking for a house at the time, and I was like, I got to find a house so I can keep the family together. Because somebody's got to keep our family together. And that's really what this is about as well, is that I want to have my kids experiencing family behaviors and activities and coming together, so that when they have children, they will have so much value or put so much value in the family that they will hand that down to their children. And so then their children will be together and their children's children will be together. Terrence just joined us. I'd love to hear what you think about what we're saying.
Well, the biggest thing is about the family. I've come from a long line of baby mamas and baby daddies from my family. All are good people. I don't take anything from them, but it was just, that was my reality. And I knew in the beginning I didn't want it to be like that. So when I got married to Kiana, courting her and all those things, we talked about family and how important it was. And right now, with the times that we're going through right now, it's a little tough because I'm used to working, getting out of the house. I'm normally gone, most of the time because of work. But now it gives me time to spend with my boys at the house, and then me and Kiana get a chance to talk about different things on how we want to raise them and what we want that to look like. Mm-hmm. And just like you guys said before, it gets back to back in the day when we were younger, when we were kids. Like if they told you couldn't go outside, you can't go outside. Mm-hmm. So you had to sit in there and you had to figure out a way to be entertained with your siblings. You know what I mean? So I think it's it sucks because of people are getting sick and people are dying, mm-hmm. but then it also puts in perspective for me how important family is and the values that I need to instill in my boys as being the man of the household.
Yeah.
So
it's amazing how many things were invented because you had to stay in the house. Sock basketball was way before Nerf basketball was.
Huge.
Oh man, we used to play full-on games,
Yeah.
Series with sock basketball.
Yeah.
Till your mother goes, I don't want to hear no more banging, and I'm tired of y'all wrecking the doors in my house.
The laundry baskets.
Yeah. Well, see, we just had hangers. We just had hangers and socks.
So we evolved to laundry baskets.
Y'all had some money.
We cut the bottom out of the laundry basket and stuck it in the corner with some tape.
See, we didn't have all that, and so. But now you got Nerf
Yeah.
and all these other things that came from it, and so there's so much that just coming together can create. Can create just coming together, and so you guys are learning some things and creating some things if you just spend time together. If we just spend time together, there's so much that we can make happen. But our main focus is, how do we do this? How do we reconnect? I know that you guys had did you guys have a period of time where you had to go from being gone to you and Kiana learning how to reconnect, or was it always, it's just stayed good during that time? Or did you have to say, you know what, I gotta slow down, I gotta put this phone down, I gotta engage?
Well, I'll go first. I mean, for me, it was, I had a line of mentors as well that were family men that come from coaching. And they always instilled in me, always make time for your family. So, being in coaching, I always tried to make sure that I sat down and got a chance to talk to Kiana. When I first started in Southern Illinois, when we got married, I told her, I said, baby, just give me 30 minutes from when I get in the door. Give me 30 minutes, let me clear everything down, and then the rest of the time is yours. And then after that, then I'll start working. And she's been my rock for that. She's held our household down, and it's an easy transition for me. So I would love to. I've heard her talk to me about this before, but I would love to hear what she has to say now.
Well, no. I was saying earlier that the transition for me has been nice because I'm an introvert. You know what I mean? I enjoy being home. I enjoy being around my boys, around my husband, and the fact that I like you really helps too. But now that we have two toddler boys, you don't have the luxury of 30 minutes because it's daddy, 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 daddy. Right? And, as soon as they see the garage door go up, it's daddy, and they're amped. But I think we've done very well. In fact, we've started working out together. He's like my workout partner. He's worse than the trainer that I used to have, but he's very good at what he does. So we started doing stuff that we haven't done before. So it's been, I want to use the word magical almost. You know what I mean? But it's been really nice. I'm enjoying this time because I know that as soon as everything lifts, we're going to go right back to the hustle and bustle, but there will be more of a mindfulness of what took place and making more time, concentrated time, with family.
Let me ask you a question,
I was going to say something too.
Let me ask you a question. Now that you're spending more time at home with Kiana, are you more aware of what she does? Has it made you open your eyes like, this is a whole lot bigger job than I thought it was?
Yeah, most definitely. I knew going in just because, of my mom, how hard it was to raise. My mom had 3 boys on her own.
Right.
So I already knew that I gave her a hard time, or our boys gave her a hard time. So then, before, when we knew we had 2 boys, the second boy came out, I was like, hey, we need to talk about this. Things that's going to happen. But being away, I think she's done me getting a chance to sit down and see her now. I think she's done a heck of a job because it is a lot. Those boys have, they're my kids. They got a lot of energy, and a lot of personality. Even coming from you guys' side of the family, you guys got a lot of personality.
Oh, so now we get blamed.
Yeah. Both sides. But it's been great. So to just help her to instill like the manners, potty training, discipline when needed, to help be there and give that voice. So now, when things do lift and I have to go back to work and shaking and moving, like they know and they understand this means that. So
I want to ask 2 questions, and the first question is directed to Kyle and Kayla. It's now we're in the coronavirus. You both have significant others, and you how are you managing that? And Kayla left to go somewhere the other day, and I sent her a text message, like the governor said you ain't supposed to be out, get back in this house. It's so how are you all managing your relationships? Because I think that there are people out there that are in relationships, and some of them are heeding the warning and some of them are not heeding the warning. And how do you all feel about that? That's my first question. And then the second question I have would be more directed toward people who have spouses and they don't like them, and they got to be in the house with them. They don't love them, and they got to be in the house with them. And so when we're done talking to Kyle and Kayla, I want to be able to address that a little bit too. So,
ladies first.
Because you said another question, I got distracted by that. So
how are you navigating your relationship right now with this edict, if you will, that we got from the government?
Okay. So I was already in a long-distance relationship. My significant other lives here in Milwaukee. I lived in Chicago. So we were long distance going on like 8 months. And so it was already very difficult, like us just, trying to learn each other from a distance, learning our mannerisms, how to communicate with each other, learning what we're sensitive about, So now that I'm like 7 minutes away, we're like, oh, yay, but like it still stinks because it's almost like we're still long distance because, I can only see him sometimes, but like even he tries to do as much as he can and I try to do as much as I can. Just because we don't want to be disobedient. Because, they said you can't be out during these times. We still want to follow through with what the guidelines are. We want to be able to, see each other, but at the same time, we want to be safe. So, like, if he picks me up from work, drops me off at work, even that small amount of time is awesome.
Okay.
I know for me, with my relationship, when we had first gotten together, we had gotten together technically face-to-face. Like, I started to court and I started to like get to know her in a face-to-face setting because we both had our classes together. And so like I could talk to her right away, and I always had that like, hey, how's your day going? Hey, what you up to? And so we got to like go and grow and bond from that. And then we went on Christmas break, and that was a whole month apart, and like we didn't get together until technically during Christmas break. So when we first we started dating, we already had that kind of a long distance trial run, I guess. But I've been in plenty of long distance relationships before, and like now I know that I know how they work. It's really interesting because now with this relationship, after Christmas break, we went back and like we actually got to like spend like face-to-face time together. We actually got to like hang out almost like every week and like get to like go see each other because like we're both super duper busy. So like I have my own life, she has her own life, but like we still like try to make time to like hang out together. And like if like she's going through something, I can quickly just put on my stuff, go down the street, go see what's going on with her, and then like if I'm going through something, she's like quick to like hop over and just check on me. But like now that we have this whole like long distance thing and this like this edict of yo, you have to be over here, you have to be over here. She lives up in Stevens Point, and I'm still here in Milwaukee. So now I'm like Kayla, I don't have the luxury of like getting to be like, hey, let's like sing and let's actually go hang out. It's like all my connection with her is over the phone. And so I'm trying to my best to make it a, what's the word I'm looking for? Try to make it a priority to like hit her up in the mornings, hit her before I go to bed. Hey, how's your day going? Hey, like how are you feeling today? What's going on with this, that, whatever? Remembering details from our conversation so I can bring them up later, so show her that I care and things like that. Because yeah, when things go bad, you don't have the luxury of being like, here, give me a hug. You don't have the luxury of figuring it out. So.
Yeah, shouldn't be no hugging no way no right now.
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
Hey,
Yes.
the rule is 6 feet.
6 feet.
But after this is done, it's still 3 feet.
Right.
Working it now.
But anyway, but then let's talk about, thank you for sharing that, but let's talk about relationships where people, because we know that there are people that are out there, you may be rolling your eyes as we're talking because you're in a relationship with someone, you're married to someone that you do not like them, and you're even questioning whether or not you love them because there's been some hurt, there's been some challenges or something like that, and you got to be in the house together. What better time than now to begin working on the damages that have been done in the relationship. A lot of people are not communicating. A lot of people, they're refusing to talk to one another. They're quiet. They're slamming doors, and all kind of drama is going on in the household. If you're a believer, Romans 5:5 says that God's love has been shed abroad in your heart by the Holy Spirit. So that means that you have the ability to love, but loving somebody, it's not an emotion. It's a decision that you make when you're in love with somebody or when you love somebody, and you have to make the decision to forgive. You have to make the decision to have a conversation, even difficult conversations, because we don't like to have hard conversations. But they're critical to the success of the relationship. And so if you are in a relationship with someone and you got to be stuck in the house with them and you don't want to be with them, I want to encourage you to do it God's way, to remember what He said. Yes, there's things, ugly things that happen in relationships, and then there's good relationships. Bad things happen to good relationships. But in spite of all of it, God has given us the tools to be able to love one another and to overcome the situations. And so just know that, and if you need to seek counsel, seek counsel. Look for somebody to walk you through it, to give you another way of thinking about it so that you can have the victory that you need, or the success that you need to have in your relationships. I don't know how much time we have, but one of the other... We still got to have good. One of the questions that I wanted to ask, and that's everybody, is where is God in all of this? We have different people who believe that God had something to do with the virus. That's not my personal belief. I believe that He's taking advantage of it, of the situation, but I do not believe that God is the one that brought the virus. But where is God in this? And to my family, if we can honestly share, where were you before the virus hit? What was your relationship like with God and maybe the church or something like that? We'll start with Kyle and Kayla.
I know for me, one of the big things that I experienced in my time being in college is, or in particular with my faith walk, one of the things that I try to make sure I do every day is pray. Like, I still pray before every meal. Like, it's something that I did growing up, and like something I try to keep with me even throughout my adult days. If I'm going through things or if I ever feel uncertain about anything, I try to pray about it. But it's interesting because of my schedule and like how busy I was with all of my classes, my extracurriculars, being part of a business, and like all kinds of different things. Like, with everything that's going on, I barely had any time to actually go to church, like to physically go. And like there would be days where I would put on you guys' live stream. Like, if I'm sitting in the bed before we had like study tables or something, I would put you guys on. Or like sometimes if I go and if I'm making myself a meal, I'll put you guys on, and like different things like that. But it's funny because when I got home, and like now that this virus has hit, when I first got back, I remember hearing about all the things that were going on and how you couldn't be in groups of more than, what was it, like 10 at the time?
At first it started off at 250.
250.
Yeah.
Then it dropped down to, I think, 50.
No, yeah, and then
Yeah. 10. But like, don't even hang with one another.
Yeah, but like, essentially, but like, what's really funny about that is, so when I got back here back to Milwaukee, then folks were like, "Here, Kyle, we're going to church." My first thought process was, that's a lot of people I got to hug. like, I love y'all. I love World Outreach, but like, that's a lot of people I got to come into contact with. People gonna be like, "Oh, Kyle, welcome back to church. Hey, how's it going?" Like, World Outreach has tiny hallways too, so like, they didn't have the room to like maneuver yourself around people. So like, and my thing is, heaven forbid, say like I am like a carrier of the virus or something like that. I would hate to be someone who goes to interact with all of these people and end up giving them something, or say like if I got something from someone else to give it to you guys. And like,
Would you look in the camera and tell them that you do not have the virus?
I know, good.
Just so they know.
I'm about to say, after this whole thing, I'm officially realizing that I'm more antisocial than I realized. But like, it's interesting because now, once this like whole thing is over, I'm actually kind of looking forward to going back to church, and like looking forward to being around a big group of believers and like getting to hear the music and getting to spend time in the Word with like a big group of people. Because like some of my favorite people are at church. Some of my greatest connections were formed at church growing up. And so like to not be able to like to interact with some of those people and not being able to see them every day, it sucks. And or every Sunday, every week.
Kayla.
Okay. So I guess I'll say that my relationship with God was very interesting, because I had gone through a period where I questioned whether, and I'll be honest, if I questioned whether God was even real. And I was just like, I got to college, and the first people that I was introduced to were Kojic. I'm talking like somebody say something and they start shouting. I'm like, what is this? Like, it was very interesting. And I started to being around God all the time. God just being like a common thing in our conversations. And it almost became like God being one of my best friends. Like sometimes I'd be like you know how like people pray, you know, they like get down on both knees and they have their hands or whatever in the little prayer pose. But me, I'd just be talking to God like I was on the phone. I'm like, hey, what's up? Like, what's poppin'? You know? And you know, God started showing me like ways of being creative and ways of allowing Him to move through me, which is awesome. When it comes to going to church in Chicago, that was very different, because you all set a very high standard of what church should be. And when I went to a lot of churches in Chicago, I didn't like it. Like the worship wasn't hidden, and I'm a musician, so I'm like, you're flat. And like there was a lot of just feel good messages. It was like, oh, like, you know, God loves you no matter what, like, which I understand, but like if I'm going through something, you know, or I'm like, okay, well, how do I navigate through this? It's like, you know, I want to hear the knit and grit, and I also want to hear how God has saved me through that. Yeah.
Kiana, Terrence, I'll let
Do
you
you remember the question?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I do. So my relationship with God, if I could use one word, I would say constant. And I was actually talking to Terrence on the way here about this, and you know, whether or not God brought this upon, you know, the people or not. And because my relationship with God is constant, I have an understanding of God that if He did bring it upon me, He also equipped me to go through it. If He didn't bring it upon me, He also equipped me to go through it. So regardless of if God brought it or not, to me, God is still good. He's still the same. He's still the same.
Yeah.
And so,
But we know He didn't.
But
Right.
Exactly. So I mean, if I had that belief that He did, or you know, then I would be like, but He gave me the tools and the resources to
Right.
get through it. So, you know, I wouldn't worry about it. And I've said this to God so many times over the course of my lifetime, that I trust you, God. God, I trust you. God, I trust you. Mm-hmm. And that reigns true in every area of my life. Mm-hmm. You know, when I'm cooking and I'm thinking about just things that I'm going through, or you know, maybe I'm having difficulties, you know, with you know, raising my children or something of the nature, it always comes out of me, God, I trust you. And that's been consistent and He has been consistent my entire life. Mm-hmm. I've never felt abandoned. I've never felt like God wasn't there. I've always had this constant peace about God having my back. So my relationship with God is constant. Mm-hmm. You know, and what's wonderful about situations like this is that I can instill that in my children.
Yeah.
I can tell my children, God is always going to be with
Right,
us.
but that's homegrown, and that's homegrown. What you just said, instilling it into your children, is because the love that you have for God and the consistency that you know about it came because growing up, He was a consistent presence in your life, and so then you carry that into your adult life with your kids. Same with Kyle and Kayla. Okay, so you didn't go to church. Church attendance is important, but you don't go to church. But there's still that connection with the Father that you have, which is another reason why your family is so important, because that's where we learn we get our spiritual roots, if you will. They come from our mothers, our fathers, our grandmothers, the people that are in our lives and whatnot. And so that's good. That's good, Terry.
Now, I'm going to piggyback off Kiana, just because, like you guys said, it's a constant. It's been there. It's homegrown. I mean, we grew up in the church young, and you had to go. Sunday school, you had church like all week long. I was like, man, I thought it was just on Sunday. But it was all week. So then when you get a chance to get to college and get away, then you're like, okay, I don't have to go, but then it's still in you to search for it. So always, my relationship with God, I think, is great. It's never changed. And then I have a God-fearing woman by my side, so that even made it better. So it's easy to instill it in our kids. So I'm not trying to knock the coronavirus and say I'm not worried about it, but I'm not worried about it. Like she said, I think we are equipped with everything that we need, and He never puts you in a situation where you can't handle. So I've never forgotten that, and that's what I ride with all the time.
Fear's just not associated with what's going on. You know what I mean? It's just not. It's not. You know what I mean? There's for us. There's peace. Now we are being very mindful. We're doing everything we need to do. We're using wisdom, but there's no fear.
I mean, if you think about it, in the Old Testament, Jesus or God told the Israelites, put the blood over the doorpost and then stay in the house. As long as you stayed where I told you to stay, you're good.
Protected.
You're protected. But you can put the blood over the doorpost and still go outside and say, this ain't gonna happen to me, and you would have died with everybody else. So it's a matter of not just having faith, but it's also a matter of being obedient and being wise. And faith does not override a lack of wisdom. You have to say, listen, I'm covered in the blood, but that don't mean I ain't washing my hands. That don't mean I'm not going to use hand sanitizer. I'm still going to do the necessary things to make sure if this deadly thing attaches to me, it won't kill me. And so
because you're working a supernatural truth in a natural body. And the things that happen from a natural standpoint, when you're the goal is to get the reality that's in your spirit to affect your outer life. But if you go out, we talked about the snakes. You stick your hand in a snake pit. Jesus said that He would redeem us from the snakes and the serpents and all of that kind of stuff. But if you put your hand in the pit with the snakes, you are going to get bit. And so we have to use the wisdom of God, as Skip was saying, and pull the realities of heaven that are within us out of us. And that's where the protection is. It's when we are in compliance. The Bible tells us to obey the laws of the land. We're told to do that. And so when it's your obedience and your faith working together that produces the supernatural power of God in our lives. You can't defy the natural. It's a part of us, and we've got a lot of people kind of doing like that to the coronavirus. You can't do that.
Can't give the coronavirus the finger. Because the reality of it is, we got to make sure that we're compliant with what God is saying and His Word. Let us make sure y'all know. We're not afraid, and it's not boasting. We're just not afraid because we trust God.
Our trust is in God.
And we do the natural and the supernatural together. That's what keeps us straight. We don't panic because the Bible says He will keep our mind in perfect peace if we keep it constantly stayed on what He said.
Because we trust in Him is the last part of that scripture.
We trust in Him. And so I don't, if I even when people get around me, when I can sense they're starting to get shaky, I'm like, okay, come on, calm down. We good. God got us. I'm trying to be in everybody I get around just a calming force. We ain't got to panic over this. This ain't the first time something like this has ever hit our country. We done had polio, measles.
The flu itself at one time was a big deal.
Bird flu.
Swine flu.
Mad cow, just about any kind of animal we done had. You know, I was a victim of H1N1, almost took me out. And I'm like, if H1N1 couldn't take me out, I ain't nowhere near worried about this.
Because you're doing the necessary things.
Because I'm washing my hands. You know, Kayla's boyfriend came over the house. Her friend came over the house, and I said, you can't come in unless you smell like Lysol.
Right.
I don't want to smell. Listen, I'm not trying to smell Sauvage right now. I'm trying to smell Lysol right now.
Clorox.
Right. I'm trying to smell all of that. Cleaning products is what I want. That's the best smelling cologne you can wear right now.
Lemon scent.
Right. But understanding that if you're still out there working, that means you're still out there connecting with people. And you're touching people, which means there has to be, first of all, an understanding that I got to cover myself in the blood spiritually before I leave here, before I interact. Second of all, I got to keep my hands washed as much as I can. You know, to me, there should be two things in every establishment right now, and that should be soap to wash your hands, and then some lotion so they don't crack, because you're going to be washing them so much. You know, but we have to think about this as a family, because again, because we're close, if one of us catches it, all of us going to have it because we spend time with one another. But if none of us catches it, ain't none of us going to have it, because we're all making sure we're taken care of. I don't think to wash my hands just because I don't want to have it. I think to wash my hands because I don't want nobody else to possibly catch it. And so that's the mindset. We can't be selfish thinking with, I ain't got it, so no. You don't have it, and make sure you don't give it to anybody else. You know, and so we got to make sure we do whatever. Like, you know, Rudy Gobert, you guys don't know who he is, but he plays in the NBA, and he's been Defensive Player of the Year. Now he's been the best defensive player in the world because he was able to shut down, not all defenders, but shut down the NBA, the NFL, hockey, schools. He shut down everything, you know. But he thought it was a game. He got up after an interview and just started touching mics. Like, if I got it, I ain't got it. Touching mics. And as a result, guys from his team got it. It got all over. I'm not saying he was the main culprit of all this, but we just got to be more mindful of, if we're hearing something could hurt someone,
I take it serious.
You got, this is not a game, y'all. It's not a game. And then also, during this, we've been making sure we've been mindful of calling others and making sure they're good. You know, we make sure that we call our seniors at our church, check it on them, making sure they're good. Do you need anything? Are you okay? Because we can't just be who's in his house that is important. It's got to be who's thinking about those other ones. Who's mindful of those other ones? Who's being mindful of the grandmothers, the women in the people in the nursing home, whoever. Who's being mindful of those ones that are most susceptible to this, which is the senior citizens. And so we just been, like our ministry, I divided all of our senior citizens among the pastoral staff. Hey, each one of y'all take a list and y'all call them. Check on them. Make sure they're good. Get them, if they need toilet paper, get it to them. If they need whatever they need, get water. Get them whatever they need. Make sure that they can get through this without struggling or being stressed out. Because one of the things about being stressed is you become more susceptible to sickness and disease because your immune system is dropping. But if you just calm, relax, you have more of ability to fight things off. So,
well, we're running out of time. But before we go, I just want to say to anyone that may be out there, maybe you are one of the individuals that's been laid off, or you've been financially hit because of the COVID-19 outbreak. And we just want you to know that we're believing God with you. You know that He's going to provide for you. There's so many different organizations that are now looking into supporting nonprofit organizations and churches and different people who may have lost their jobs during this time. But know that we're praying for you and we're believing God for you. Our household has personally experienced it. You know, I speak, and every one of my speaking engagements is canceled. And so, you know, we're believing God and we're standing in faith. So all is well. God is our source. He's our provider during this time. And so we just want you all to know that we love you and we want to thank you for joining us today.
Yeah. Thanks for hanging with us, y'all.
Yeah, thank you so much. And if you're looking to sow, is the sign to sow down there? Has that been down there at all? James's, okay. We want to encourage those of you that have been watching. This is our Wednesday night World Outreach Center. We're looking for you to sow into the ministry. You know, some people don't realize that the only way that we can help someone else is if someone helps us. And so we look to our members to continue to sow. You can sow at World Outreach. You can text 77977, and then when you do that, you want to type in World Outreach Give, or you can go to our website at worldoutreachbtc.org. Thank you so much for joining us. We love you all. We appreciate you, and remember that we're believing God that everything's going to be all right in your life. God bless you.
What about the prayer line?
Oh, join us every morning, Monday through Friday, from 6 to 6:30 on our prayer line. For more information, you can go to our website again at worldoutreachbtc.org. We've been praying up a storm and hope you can join us. Join us here on Sunday, 9:30 a.m. Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Kayla. Thank you, Terrence and Kiana. Thank you, Pastor Skip.
Thank you, Pastor Mel.
Thank you.
We love you guys. Thank you so much for joining us. Bye-bye.
Bye.